Hi, welcome to episode number 9 of the Better Conversations podcast. We speak to the leaders of today so that the leaders of tomorrow can be inspired, enriched, and better than those who came before them. Today, I am with Facey. He's the CEO of Audiomob. It is a company that allows brands to connect with the massive mobile gaming audience. Hi, Christian, how are you?
All is well, thank you. Appreciate you inviting me on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. I'm really glad to have you on as well. So we get straight into it. It would be great to know sort of a little bit around your first turning point that you're going to speak about today, which is failing your A-levels. It would be really interesting to hear more about that.
Yeah. So one of the key turning points was when I failed all my A levels. I was 16 years old, and I definitely thought I was more well versed in the studies that I was doing than I actually was, and it kind of hit me like a brick wall. I was expecting to get B's and A's, not complete failure, and I then suddenly realized I need to improve my aptitude and the way that I work, the way that I learn things. I effectively need to become smarter, or I'm not going to amount to anything. And it's not just studies, because grades don't make you the person that you are, but it just knows my approach to the whole problem. So that was like being hit, like running into a brick wall, being hit by a car or something. I was like, whoa, okay, I am not good enough to do what I want to do in my life, kind of thing. And then that fire under the belly, so to speak, is what set me on the path to where I am today.
Yeah, and I guess what were some of the things that you changed in your approach? Because I think I've been hit with that as well. So it would be good to know some of the things that you changed.
Yeah, so I started adopting a trial and error method. I wanted to figure out how to become smarter. Like, it's quite simple, right? I want to learn this thing so I could do this skill, so I could persuade this person to pay me to do this job. Like, it was very, very simple at that point. So I was like, okay, I need to get good grades so I can get to the next level. Now, for anyone listening, it's obviously not all about your grades, but that comes a bit later. So I started a trial and error method, figuring out how my mind works, learning how to learn, so to speak. And it was everything from looking at equations that I'd forget in a statistics exam, putting them on my wall, going to sleep, looking at them. For essays and long projects, using audio dictation and falling asleep listening to them. I tried study groups, befriending certain groups of people that like to study in the library rather than chilling out in the social circles or social areas, etc. So I tried literally everything under the sun. And that mindset I carried throughout the whole of university as well. And eventually it worked when I figured out how to learn.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess as well, it can be quite difficult to actually adopt like a trial and testing approach. I know that for me, it didn't really, I had to really work on that because I'm someone that's quite organized. So I kind of want to put everything in one place at the right time and get it sort of done. For someone like, I guess, who's a bit of a perfectionist, I guess what's sort of the advice around that as well that you'd give? Because you seem to have mastered trial and error, especially now you've started a startup as well, and you've got that experience. That's all I guess about trial and error, and trying to find the best fit for your product. So yeah, like what was the mindset changes that you had to make to actually develop a trial and error approach, or did you have to make any?
Okay. So in terms of developing a trial and error approach, for me it was quite simple. It was like come up with a long list of ways that I could potentially study that I haven't tried before. And I will know if it worked in two ways. One, do I actually like this version of studying and do I retain the knowledge when it came to testing myself on questions? And two, were my grades improving? If it wasn't improving, then I'll just spend or reallocate some of my time to a different method of studying. And so you start figuring out these things for yourself in terms of like really understanding like how your mind works. Like for me, for a certain period of university, I would procrastinate, right? I'd actually plan procrastination. So, get up, I'd watch a bit of TV, I might, go to my lectures and stuff, come back, play some games, watch some more TV. And usually like when I have like 3 days, I procrastinate and do whatever the hell I wanted until 6 p.m. And then, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m, a bit of dinner, watch a bit of TV. And then it gets to like 8, 8:30 to 9 p.m. and I'll work until like 4 a.m. So I'll like be like hardcore working until 4 a.m. So that was a system that worked for me. There's no way in hell I could do that now. I have a company to run, but that approach of figuring out how to do that trial and error that works for you for that period of time, it's just been very, very transparent. Like people think, oh, you shouldn't procrastinate. You should just, do your tasks and then do your studies automatically. But that's not how I worked, and I'm glad that I accepted that at the time.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I think a lot of the time you get pushed into sort of one way of doing something. Like what you just said, we get told not to procrastinate, we get told to wake up early. All of this, jargon that a lot of these, serial entrepreneurs chuck around at us, wake up early, 4 a.m., grind out, all of these things. How did you actually get away from that as well? Because that can sometimes be quite a toxic mindset to be in, and I know it's a mindset that a lot of people are in as well, and they believe that they have to sort of follow these regimented plans.
So I would say take it with a pinch of salt. It's good in small doses. And for instance, Gary V, someone I still follow actually, and I was like really brutal in terms of I want to become an entrepreneur, I want to do all this stuff, do whatever it takes, kind of thing. And one of the things is, you might have to bleep this out, this quote, because he swears a lot, but he was on this podcast like years ago, and I remember reading it, and I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And he said, there's a lot of people that complain about, they want the dreams, and they complain about not having their dreams, and then they hate on other people that are achieving their dreams when they haven't done anything with their lives. And it's like, you basically need to dedicate yourself to your dream until your eyes bleed. Otherwise, you're full of shit and you can't complain. I really like that because I was like, I'm doing all these little side projects and there's nothing that I really want to do where I'm literally killing myself to get up.
Yeah.
And then I started developing games, and literally as soon as I was conscious, like, when you wake up like 4 or 5 a.m. or something, you put the snooze button on, and then you go to sleep until 6, 7 or 8 or whatever. I was like, oh yes, I'm conscious. Let me start doing some games. And then that's when I knew, I was like, all right, I'm going to do something in gaming. And now I'm, lead a $100 million company in the gaming advertising space, right? So I would say in short bursts, like really taking that mindset in terms of, if this is something that you're literally going to work yourself to exhaustion because you love doing it, you go a bit overboard and then you find balance. But that's how I, anyway, knew that I wanted to do something in gaming because of that experience.
Yeah, that's really good insight, actually. Thanks for sharing that.
That's all right.
That's, I guess, the second turning point, I guess, you've mentioned it as well, which is getting a first-class degree, and also an offer from Google as well, which is really interesting. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, going from a bottom-ranked university, failing all your A-levels, going to that bottom-ranked university and clearing. So it's like going to bottom-ranked university, barely being able to get in, to, getting straight A's and the job offer from the best company in the world. Yeah. The way that I see it is, and this is the key thing that I took from that, is one, if I put my mind to something, I can figure out how to do it. Getting that first class degree was like the first real achievement where I'm like, oh man, I feel kind of smart right now. I actually figured out how to do what I wanted to do, kind of thing. Yeah. So and that's how I've approached everything. And when I got to Google, I taught myself to make games, making software. As they say, engineering and software is the closest thing to magic, right? And figuring out how to do that, it took ages, but I knew I was going to be able to do it. It's just a matter of time. So getting that first class degree helped me, and when I knew I was on track to getting straight A's and then the first class degree, I was using that to get work experience. And this is a key thing that I'd encourage viewers to think about: is that if you have seen it's possible, it is absolutely possible. To give an example, I was like, all right, there's got to be someone from Kingston that has gone to Google. There are loads of people. There's people that went to Kingston that got to JP Morgan, went to Goldman Sachs, did these amazing things. And I was like, all right, if they could do it, I could definitely do it. Yeah. I mean, I'm starting to get A's, so I might be able to figure out how to get these job offers. And it's just a question of talking to those people that have done it, or talking to people that are at least on that trajectory, and then mimicking what they do. It's as simple as that. Yeah. A lot of people have too big egos, oh, I don't want to ask for help, I want to figure out how to do it myself. And it's like, well, you can spend years figuring out how to do it yourself, or you can cheat and then just ask someone who's made mistakes and not make those mistakes. And again, I did this with the degree, getting jobs, starting a company. It's all the same mindset.
Yeah. How do you, I guess, build the confidence to actually go out there and speak to these people in the first place? Because as you said, it can sometimes be maybe a bit of a humbling experience. Maybe people don't want to go out and do that. How did you actually build the confidence to go out and do that?
It's a good question because I don't remember ever being shy asking someone for help.
Mm.
It wasn't so much building the confidence because I've always had the confidence. I was always like, I really want to achieve this great thing, and you've already done it. It would be great to, get some advice from you. And usually when you ask people for advice, I mean, they're not going to say, oh, go away. I don't really want to talk to you. Most successful people want to help other people become successful. The only thing I would say is, don't waste people's time, right? So you don't just go up to someone and be like, well, I'm not really sure about what I want to do or anything like that. I mean, again, if you're not sure what you want to do, like, don't have that gravitas, have that like direct, succinct kind of explanation, so you're not wasting that person's time. Because the thing that people hate is like, well, I want some advice. What do you want advice? And well, I'm not sure. It's like, no, like, know what you want to talk to this person about, and that's what trips up a lot of people. So the thing that I would say is just remember that it's a numbers game. The more people you ask, the more that are likely to say yes after you get a number of no's or maybe no responses. And most successful people will want to give back if you are succinct and know at least what you want to try and do. Like the questions that you could ask in terms of trying to uncover what your skill set is. If you don't know what you want to do, the question you should be asking is, okay, you're clearly a passionate person. How did you find out that you wanted to do this? Or something like that, just be succinct and direct. And when you ask these people, eventually one will help you.
Yeah. And one more question on this one, which I think would be really interesting for the audience as well, is how did working at Google shape your ambitions? Because right now, especially, there's a bubble of, get out of the 9 to 5, everyone needs to become an entrepreneur, everyone needs to go out and build their own company. How did Google, I guess, how did Google play into shaping that entrepreneur ambition, or did you have it before? And was working at Google actually interesting, and did it build you to who you are today? Did it play a part in that?
I'd say Google and Facebook, actually, they both helped me get the knowledge that I needed to explore this entrepreneurial endeavor in the best light. Like, I'm not going to lie, right? Being a founder of an ad company, an ad tech company, advertising company, working at Google and Facebook, I have like the best possible CV ever to build this outside of maybe being a previously exiting founder of a $1 billion advertising company, right? Like, it's really, really good experience. So I'd be lying if I said I didn't have any impact. I had a real impact in terms of the credibility of initially having this conversation with VCs. It's like 1% of the whole equation of actually getting the investment. But outside of that, once you work at one of the best companies in the world, and you've worked at I've worked at all kinds of companies, like best companies in the world are some companies that are like normal, right? And in terms of their standing in the tech space, you start figuring out that all the companies are pretty similar in terms of how they direct your life. And I already knew beforehand that I wanted to build my own business, something that I owned, that I had control of progressing, something that could add value, that I had like a real impact on. Like everything I do has impact actually on an industry now, to be honest. Like it's really crazy stuff. So having that kind of ambition when you work at these companies, well, for me anyway, I already knew that I wanted to build my own thing, and the company was just a milestone and a learning experience to help me get to that further goal.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And the final, I guess, turning point, as you mentioned as well, it's a nice follow through, I guess, is raising a seed round for actually starting the company. What was the journey? That always seems to be like a really difficult time for entrepreneurs. So yeah, tell us a bit more.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, like, while after I left Facebook, raising the money in like a 6 month period, it
Wow.
it was difficult.
Mm.
However, it's not a 6 month journey as the press would describe it. It was more like a 10-year journey, as we discussed, right? From
Yeah.
A levels to getting the degree to getting the work
Mm.
experience to really getting that mindset of a founder that can execute on pretty much anything. Because the world
Yeah.
investors are like, you give you some hard targets, and or you set hard targets with them that you agree on. The
Mm.
world throws some very, very hard curveballs at you, like COVID, like a
Yeah.
recession, like war in Europe, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like raising the seed round enabled me to solidify that all the work I had done over a 10-year period was going to massively influence my next 10 years.
Mm.
I already know, like, if Audiomob fails, for instance, I know my mindset is I'm going to end up in an amazing place anyway.
Yeah.
I'm also trusting the fact, and my employees and investors are trusting the fact that, you know, despite all these different these hard times, Audiomob is more likely to go to a good place than to completely
Yeah.
fail. And raising that seed round, I mean, if you think about it, right, there's a certain percentage of people that get straight A's. There's a lower percentage of people that get first class degrees. There's
Yeah.
like under 1% of people that get a business funded. There's
Yeah.
under, what was it, 0.1% of people that get a series A. Like, it all kind of starts accumulating.
Yeah.
And raising the seed round really solidified that I had made the right decisions in terms of figuring out how to learn. And
Yeah.
it's influenced my conviction in overcoming obstacles to raise the Series A to grow the people
Yeah.
from 12 to 40 meter. Like, it's the same stuff.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I guess one thing I want to ask as well is what's sort of the one skill that you need to actually raise that seed round? Like, what was that one skill that you used to do that?
Succinct storytelling.
Mm.
That was one. That was one skill.
Yeah.
That was the one skill, and a lot of founders, including myself, thought that because they can tell the story, remember it in a succinct order, that is actually succinct. But what I mean by
Yeah.
that is, do you have the kind of succinct story that perfectly identifies what a VC wants? You know, do you summarize yourself in a very hard-hitting way with gravitas? Do you identify the problem? Do you identify the solution? Do you have a video for the solution? Do you have the total addressable market? Do you have the, like, there's all these little things that they can be very, very succinct in each section, not just have an overall succinct story. So once I got my storytelling to scratch, that is what made the difference between raising the seed round and not raising the seed round. That's definitely the key skill.
Yeah, and I think that's a powerful skill just in general as well, storytelling. So that's really nice to see it comes out from that as well. And yeah, just to end off, I guess one thing you would advise your younger self.
Let me think. Approaching your goals without any compromise. So that is like super, super important. And I remember reading an article in Forbes. I really want to reshare this, but I can't remember the name. I just remember a specific quote, which is that thousands of people were interviewed about the key things that they did to be successful in their 30s, and they basically gave up their 20s. And for me, it was like, I'm willing to give up my 20s in order to, try and start my company, raise millions of, millions of dollars. And I knew that I needed to make that make that sacrifices. And there's things that I did which I didn't knew would hinder my progress. Which I knew would hinder my progress, but I did it anyway. So there's relationships I had where I want a multi-million-dollar company by 30. You know, previous relationship I had where my girlfriend at the time wanted, the house, the dog, the car, some career and stuff. And I'm not knocking that at all. It's just very, very different in terms of what you have to work towards over like a 5 to 10 year period. There's things like, for instance, I lent money to people in need, friends, which I definitely shouldn't have. I should have gone towards another experiment, right? So the advice I'll give to my younger self is approach all of your goals without compromise. I was working at the best companies in the world for most of my 20s, Google and Facebook, right? I wasn't going on holiday every month like a lot of people were. I just wasn't doing it. I was saving money because I knew that I needed to invest it in my own ideas. So that most people aren't willing to do that though. But that's one bit of advice I'd give myself in my early 20s. I started adopting that by the time I was 26 though.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. It's been extremely insightful. One more thing, is there somewhere where people can find you if they want to reach out or just sort of ask for any more advice that you're willing to give?
Oh yeah, sure thing. So just search Christian Facey on LinkedIn. A lot of people reach out to me on there, and yeah, I try and be as responsive as I can.
Thank you very much, Christian. It's been great having you, and thanks for listening, everyone. And you've just listened to a better conversation. Thank you. Hope to see you next time.
Thanks, David. Cheers.